I felt the tears welling up, but quickly forced them back. But we have a history, I argued. 3 years, Nick. All those memories, all our plans. Hi, I'm done. I still remember the day Nick first kissed me behind the bleachers after football practice. The metal was icy against my back, but his Letterman jacket kept me warm. His hands trembled slightly as they cupped my face, and I could smell the fresh-cut grass clinging to his uniform. That was 3 years ago. A time when everything felt thrilling and new. Now, at 20, I find myself staring at my phone more than I look at him when we're together. Our time together has become monotonous, just a routine. Friday nights, once spontaneous and filled with adventure, driving around in his beat-up Corolla, sharing fries at the all-night diner on 5th Street, or kissing in deserted parking lots, turned into dull evenings spent at his parents' house. We sit silently as the TV hums in the background, both scrolling on our phones or what a couple is supposed to do. Last weekend I met Sarah for coffee at our favorite downtown cafe. The place was alive with its usual Saturday morning buzz, the scent of fresh pastries wafting through the air. The barista didn't even ask for our orders. She knew them by heart. A vanilla latte for me, an Americano for Sarah. Stirring my drink absent-mindedly, I confided in her about how Nick and I barely spoke anymore, how our movie nights had become sessions of silent scrolling. Maybe you need to shake things up, Sarah suggested, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against her cup. Have you ever thought about opening up your relationship? I nearly choked. Like seeing other people? Yeah, she said, leaning in conspiratorially. But ethically, you both agreed to it, set boundaries. It's not cheating if everyone's honest. She lowered her voice. My cousin tried it with a boyfriend, and she says it made them appreciate each other more. The idea planted itself in my mind and refused to leave. That night, lying in my childhood bedroom, surrounded by photos of Nick and me from proms and football games, I scrolled through articles about open relationships until my eyes ached. It seemed logical. We could explore and grow without losing each other. We wouldn't have to throw away 3 years just because we were curious about what else might be out there. It took me a week to get Nick on board. Every time we met, I dropped subtle hints, little seeds of the idea, planting them during lunch at the campus cafe, in crowded hallways, or while curled up on his parents' couch. Think about it, I'd say, watching his expression closely. We're only 20. Shouldn't we experience more before settling down completely? He'd shake his head, his warm brown eyes clouded with doubt, but I kept at it. We'd still be us, I reassured him one evening over pizza at Mario's, our go-to spot since sophomore year. This could make us stronger. We'd know we chose each other over anyone else. Finally, last night, he agreed. We were sitting in his car outside my apartment, the glow of the streetlight casting shadows on his face. I had memorized every inch of it years ago, but now it seemed unfamiliar. If this is what you really want, he said quietly, his fingers nervously drumming on the steering wheel. I leaned over and kissed him, relief and excitement bubbling in my chest. It'll be perfect, I promised. You'll see. Looking back, I wonder if I noticed the doubt in his eyes and chose to ignore it. Maybe I was too caught up in the thrill of something new to see that I might be breaking something that didn't need fixing. Hey, I'm Nick. When Donna first brought up the idea of an open relationship, I thought she was kidding. We were watching TV in my basement, the same spot we'd spent countless evenings since junior year. The familiar scent of Mum's fabric softener lingered on the throw pillows, and the dent in the couch where we always sat felt like home. Everything seemed normal until those words left our mouth. It was like someone had rewritten the rules to a game I thought I'd mastered. I tried to laugh it off, but she wouldn't let it drop. Every time we met that week, she brought it up. Over burgers at Danny's, the diner where we'd been regulars since getting our licenses, our usual booth by the window felt oddly constricting. During our Wednesday study session at the library, her whispers about freedom and exploration echoed between the dusty shelves where we'd once stolen kisses, even between classes by her locker, our old meeting spot. She shared articles about successful open relationships instead of gummy bears, or complaints about professors. "Think about it logically," she'd say, using the persuasive tone I knew all too well. It was the same voice she'd used when convincing me to sneak into that midnight horror movie back in junior year. "We're too young to limit ourselves. Don't you want to see what else is out there?" But I didn't. I loved our Friday movie nights, knowing exactly how she liked her coffee, vanilla creamer, no sugar. I didn't mind when she stole my hoodies and conveniently forgot to return them. I didn't need more. The idea of her with someone else twisted my stomach into knots. When I told my buddy Mike about it, we were shooting hoops in his driveway. The ball thumped against the concrete, its rhythm steady, almost like a countdown. This was the same hoop where we'd practiced for tryouts freshman year, the same place where I'd first confessed I was falling for Donna. "Man, that's how relationships end," Mike said, missing a three-pointer. "Once you open that door, you can't close it." The basketball rolled into the grass, forgotten, as he shared horror stories about his cousin's failed experiment with an open relationship. But all I could think about was how Donna's eyes sparkled when she talked about this possibility, brighter than they'd looked in months when she was looking at me. Even my parents noticed something was off. Mum asked if we'd had a fight when I barely touched dinner 3 nights in a row. Dad tried to offer advice during our weekend car maintenance session, but how do you tell your father that the girl you've loved since high school now wants to date other people? Every time Donna brought it up, my resistance faltered just a little more. It reminded me of watching a crack creep across a windshield, slow at first, then suddenly taking over completely. Her arguments began to carry a strange, distorted logic, or maybe I simply got tired of pushing back. Last night I finally gave in. We were parked outside her place, in the exact spot where 2 years ago I'd first told her I loved her. She looked at me with those large green eyes that had been trouble since high school, the streetlight catching the tiny gold flecks in them. "All right," I said, the word feeling heavy as it left my mouth. "If this is what you want." She smiled like I'd handed her the world's greatest gift, but all I could think about was how much everything would change now. As I watched her walk to a door, I couldn't help but think back to our first date at the carnival during sophomore year. I'd been so nervous about holding her hand on the Ferris wheel. Now I was agreeing to let her see other guys, and somehow that made me more anxious than any carnival ride ever could. Later that night, lying in bed, I stared at our prom picture on my nightstand. Her in that blue dress that matched my tie, both of us grinning like we had life all figured out. I wondered if this was the beginning of the end and if I was just too afraid to lose her to admit it. Donna, meanwhile, started seeing Tom from accounting. It began innocently. Coffee breaks became lunch dates, and soon they were meeting up after work. Tom was attractive in a polished corporate way. Sharp shirts, immaculate haircut, and expensive cologne. Initially, it felt thrilling, as though she was living out her own romance novel. There was no shared past, no expectations, just pure physical attraction. Their first kiss happened in the parking garage after work, and it was nothing like kissing Nick. Tom was self-assured, practiced, and smooth, making her feel worldly and sophisticated. When he invited her to his apartment, everything progressed rapidly. Like a movie on fast forward, the intimacy was technically flawless, yet afterward, lying in his high-end sheets, she felt strangely hollow. That's when she began to miss Nick's little habits. The way he absent-mindedly played with her hair while they watched TV, how he always remembered to order extra pickles for her even though he hated them, and the distinct sound of his laugh when he was genuinely happy. Tom never laughed like that. Everything about him felt calculated. Last week, she found herself checking her phone during dinner with Tom, hoping to see a message from Nick. The restaurant was upscaled, the kind of place she and Nick would only visit for special occasions, laughing about the tiny portions and impossible-to-pronounce dishes. With Tom, it felt more like a business dinner with benefits. That's when she realized this arrangement wasn't fixing anything. Instead of feeling liberated, she felt lost. The novelty had faded, leaving her with the stark understanding that what she had with Nick was unique and just needed nurturing. Yesterday, she finally summoned the courage to tell Nick she wanted to end the open relationship. She planned it carefully, inviting him to their old spot by the lake and wearing his favorite sundress. The setting sun bathed everything in golden hues, like a scene from the romantic movies they used to watch together. "I think we should go back to being exclusive," she said, her heart pounding with anticipation. His response hit her like a punch to the stomach. "I've just started enjoying this," he said softly. "I've been seeing Sarah Miller," he continued, his voice steady in a way that unsettled her. "And Jessica from chemistry class. And Katie from our Spanish club." Each name landed like a blow. Girls they both knew from high school, who had witnessed their relationship grow and had cheered them on at prom. Each familiar face felt like a fresh betrayal. "They're not just casual flings," he said, his tone unnervingly calm. "I'm actually connecting with them." She sat there, watching the sunset bleed into a deep red, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. While she had been experimenting with the idea of sophistication with Tom, Nick had been forming genuine bonds with women who shared their history. The jealousy hit her like a wave, threatening to pull her under. All those nights she thought he was at home missing her, he had been discovering happiness without her. The realization made her physically ill. This wasn't how it was supposed to unfold. He was meant to wait for her return, not thrive in her absence. For Nick, when Donna proposed opening the relationship, he never expected to embrace it. The first few days were hard. He mostly stayed home, imagining her with other guys. Then, Sarah Miller messaged him on Instagram, asking if he wanted to grab coffee and catch up. He almost declined. Sarah had been part of their extended friend group since sophomore year and had been present for many high school memories, but something compelled him to say yes. Perhaps loneliness, perhaps curiosity. They met at the old diner where he and Donna used to hang out. Sarah was different now, more confident, funnier. They talked for hours, covering everything and nothing. She remembered details about his life that even Donna had forgotten. Alaka's collection of vintage vinyl records. When she kissed him in the parking lot, it felt unexpectedly right. Jessica from chemistry class came next. They ran into each other at the campus library, and suddenly the study sessions he once had with Donna took on a fresh energy. Jessica shared his passion for obscure sci-fi books, something Donna had always dismissed as boring. Then there was Katie from Spanish Club. They reconnected at a mutual friend's party, and she suggested they practice their Spanish together. Their sessions often ended up in English, but through their conversations he learned more about himself than he had in years. Every one of these connections has revealed a different part of me. With Sarah, I rediscovered the passions I'd left behind. Jessica reminded me it's okay to embrace the quirky interests I love without hesitation. Katie made me feel truly understood in a way I hadn't experienced in years. I've started exercising again, joined a local car restoration club, and even dusted off my old guitar from the basement. The reflection in the mirror feels unfamiliar, stronger, more self-assured. The timid version of me who let Donna call all the shots is long gone. When she met me at the lake yesterday wearing that sundress I used to adore, I knew exactly what she wanted to say. The old version of me would have jumped at the chance to return to our predictable rhythm, but that's no longer who I am. I saw the pain in her expression when I told her about Sarah, Jessica, and Katie, the disbelief in her eyes when she realized I wasn't just waiting idly for her return stung, but I couldn't fall back into the patterns we once had. These aren't just flings, they're meaningful relationships with people who appreciate me as I am now, not as the boy I was in high school. The freedom Donna had wanted has transformed into something I never anticipated needing, yet I now can't envision my life without it. For Donna, everything she thought she had with me felt permanent, a safety net she believed would always be there as she explored new possibilities. She never imagined I'd be the one to grow beyond her. Last night, in a final attempt to save what we'd shared, she invited me to her apartment, the one where we spent countless evenings planning our future. She spent the entire day meticulously cleaning, arranging everything just the way I liked it, and even cooked my favorite pasta, the only dish she ever truly perfected. The familiar scent of basil and garlic filled the room, a desperate attempt to bring back the past. When I arrived, I wasn't the same person she remembered. I felt different, confident, relaxed. I wore a new jacket she didn't recognize, and my hair was styled in a way that made me look older, more mature. Seeing me standing in the doorway, so familiar, yet so changed, clearly caused her heart to ache. She began her carefully prepared speech, but her words sounded hesitant. We made a mistake with the open relationship, she said, her whole voice faltering, and we could go back to how things were, but this time I'd be more present and grateful. We could start fresh. I didn't sit down when she gestured to a chair. Instead, I leaned against the counter, making it clear I wasn't staying long. As I spoke, the pasta she'd prepared grew cold. "Donna," I said, my tone calm but resolute, "you were right about one thing. We did need to grow. But you were wrong about us needing to grow back together. I've uncovered parts of myself I never knew existed. Sarah, Jessica, and Katie aren't just distractions. They've helped me realize what I truly want in life and in a relationship." Her eyes brimmed with tears, but she held them back. "But we have history," she said, her voice almost pleading. 3 years of memories, plans, everything we've built together. I shook my head gently. "History alone isn't enough to justify going backward," I replied. "You taught me that, actually. When you insisted on the open relationship, you showed me that sometimes we need to step out of our comfort zones to discover what's right for us." The irony of her own words being echoed back to her wasn't lost on her. I straightened up, preparing to leave. This wasn't the Nick she remembered, the boy who would agree to anything to keep her happy. This was a version of me she hadn't anticipated helping to create. "I've decided to be exclusive with Sarah," I told her, my voice steady. "It wouldn't be fair to her, or to you, to pretend I can go back to the way things were. Maybe it's best if we stop seeing each other altogether and give ourselves a clean break." The pasta remained untouched as I walked toward the door. Donna wanted to chase after me, to remind me of every shared moment and promise we'd made. but the determined set of my shoulders and the confidence in my stride made it clear that it was useless. The boy who once melted at her slightest touch had been replaced by a man who knew what he wanted, and it wasn't her. After I left, she sat in her kitchen, surrounded by the remnants of her failed attempt to recapture what we'd lost. The pictures on her fridge seemed to mock her, images of younger versions of us, blissfully unaware of how thoroughly she'd unravel our relationship. One by one, she took them down, each photo cutting deep like salts in a wound. The worst part wasn't losing me. It was knowing she'd already been disposed of. She had pushed for the open relationship, convinced it would fix our issues, but instead it had solved mine, just not in the way she had hoped. I had found my voice, my confidence, and my independence. She, however, was left alone, holding the pieces of a relationship she had taken apart with her own hands. People always say to be careful what you wish for. She had wished for freedom, excitement, and change, and got all three, just not as she had imagined. Now, sitting alone in her apartment, staring at cold pasta and shedding silent tears, she realized some changes are irreversible, and some doors can't be closed once they're opened. Sometimes the one who starts playing with fire is the one who gets burned the worst.